What is up, boys and girls? We are live. It's an all new edition of Impact Showdown, our 125th episode covering TNA Impact Wrestling this Wednesday night, October 29th, 2014. A very good Wednesday evening to you all. As always, we want to get you guys involved. You can interact with us a number of ways. Post those comments down below if you're checking us out on YouTube. Also, if you're going to be checking out the podcast version of this very episode, feel free to hit us up on Twitter at the RCWR Show or on Facebook at Infinity One Productions. That's Infinity with an E. Make sure you put in the actual number one, Infinity One Productions. Give our page a like while you are there. We're going to be talking fallout from Impact Wrestling. Not really too much has been happening in TNA wrestling headlines, but there is one, maybe two items that I definitely for sure want to share with you all. And in case you guys that are watching this on YouTube are checking out the title of this episode, you may be a little bit curious as to why part of our episode description reads how TNA Wrestling deceived the fans. Something that I don't think a lot of shows are talking about. Definitely, I want to bring to your attention. That's going to be later on in the show. As always, we really appreciate you guys that check out our content and you love it so much. And if you do love it so much, spread the good word. Give this episode a thumbs up. You can Google Plus it, share it, retweet it, Facebook it. One of the many ways you can spread the good word about our content. So this was the episode that we had been hearing about for a couple of months now as Bobby Roode, Lashley, Part 2, this time around, TNA World Heavyweight Championship, the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, special guest referee. Wow, what a freaking classic encounter this was the second go round. I'll actually talk about that in just a little bit. First, let's talk about some other action that came about from tonight's episode of Impact Wrestling. We had saw the tag team tournaments continue as this go round we had saw Low Key and Samoa Joe defeat MVP and Kenny King to advance to the, I believe it's now the finals of the tag team tournament. Meanwhile, we had saw a match not related to the tag team tournament as Bram and Magnus, they had teamed up to take on Devon and a mysterious partner, as some of us were under the impression that maybe it was going to be the return of Bully Ray. On contrary, contrary, it was actually Tommy Dreamer. Nice little pipe in for Mike Tenay and the gang as far as what is going on with Bully Ray. They basically said that he's taking a extended break and that he's going to be resting up from some previous injuries that he sustained, and they basically had wished him nothing but the best and that hope they can see him down the road. So kind of a nice little way that they made their exit from Bully Ray, at least for now. Just the way that they kind of said that leaves you with the strongest impression that, hey, TNA is probably going to be looking to bring him back into the fold once they're able to secure their TV deal. We have some news with regards to the TV deal, so make sure you stick around for that. But yeah, Tommy Dreamer, Devon taking on Bram Magnus. For Bram, this is pretty much about bragging rights. He is just looking to make his mark off of those that were former ECW stars or hardcore legends at that. And man, you talk about the streak of Bram and Magnus. These guys, every single time you either take Bram or you have the combination of Bram and Magnus and you have them be involved with somebody from the hardcore genre of yesteryears, they always seem to get the one up over them. These guys are just proven to be very freaking unstoppable, as tonight was no different. Bram Magnus defeating Devon, Tommy Dreamer. I'm getting the indications that what's going on right here with these guys, it's not over by a long shot. And I must say, of all the story arcs that's currently going on in TNA, I really have been enjoying what's been going down between Bram, Devon. Nice fresh matchup right there. But at the same time, I love how they're able to throw, I hate to say old heads, but veterans is maybe the word I want to use as far as Tommy Dreamer, Devon, mixing it up with the new, trying to do a solid job in putting the younger talent over. I like what's happening right here. Like the way it's being utilized. Not on this episode tonight, but hopefully we'll get them on next week's episode. Chris Melendez, Mr. Anderson. We did not see Gunner. We did not see Samuel Shaw. I know there was probably maybe about, I'd say probably 15 minutes I had missed. However, I did quickly catch up on my DVR. Far as I know, I didn't see any of those characters as I was fast forwarding. So 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to be on next week's show. Is anybody kind of noticing a new trend that seems to be going on with each of these episodes we've been getting? It kind of seems like almost they're going with a Team A, Team B roster. Actually, if I think I might be onto something, and if that's the case, I actually like how TNA is implementing that. I mean, the first team rest, bring in the next batch of teams, only taking in key members from Team A that was seen the previous week and bringing them to the next show to complement the B roster that's leading the way for that respected episode. I like how they're kind of switching it up right there. We saw some great comic relief go down with the one and only Shark Boy, as Shark Boy was seen in a backstage segment eating a hot dog, and he was just making love to that hot dog. He look now. I love my hot dogs, but if I'm gonna be giving people autographs, that hot dog is going in the trash can. Or if I'm really loving it so much, I'm gonna maybe put it in, I don't know, refrigerator or my pocket. I don't know, inside coat pocket, whatever. But we see Shark Boy, he is just making love to his hot dog, and you see these poor little kids. They're trying to get his autograph, and all he wants to do is enjoy his hot dog. Reluctantly, he gives them an autograph. He accidentally spilt a little bit of mustard on the autograph, and the little kid goes, "There's mustard on this." The kids were so cute. You could tell that they were being schooled into that segment. They looked like they must have been maybe 5 and 4, maybe 4 and 3. They looked really, really young. And I can't think of the guy that stepped in. He looks like, every time I see him, he reminds me of Meathead from Sudden Impact Radio. Don't take it personal, Meathead, but you must admit there is some strong similarities there between you two guys. I can't think of his name right now, though, but he comes up to him and he's like, "Shark Boy, what happened to you, man? What's going on? You used to be lean. Where's that man eater? What happened? Can you get back to the old Shark Boy format? Can you bring back the Shark Boy of old? Because what's happening with you right now, man, it's just not working, Nice little strong pep talk that he was giving to Shark Boy, and I guess it fired up Shark Boy. Shark Boy feels that he can bring back the old Shark Boy, as the question was basically put to him, can he lose the weight? Because he's been given a second opportunity. Great comic relief right there, as the cameraman had asked. I wish I could remember. I'm just going to say Meathead 2.0. I asked him if he really thinks Shark Boy could really lose all that weight, at which he said, no way. But he kind of gave you the impression it's going to be a fun ride to see Shark Boy try to lose all that weight. Welcome those of you that's checking us out right now. Your host right here, Black Avenger, aka the Black Ass World, Lee Sanders. You're checking out the 125th episode of Impact Showdown, as we're talking Fallout from tonight's October 29th edition of TNA Impact Wrestling. We got some great TNA headlines coming up in just a little bit. On a side note, and enjoy this for what it's worth, because it's going to be a very short episode. There's only but a couple of more matches that we need to talk about. 125 episodes in the books. I know we have only a select few of you all that may have checked out every single episode of Impact Showdown, but the way Impact Showdown had came about, true story, Impact Showdown originally was called the RCWR Show Thursday Night Radio Edition. That's a long freaking title, by the way. But when we first started off, that was the original name and the original format of our show. We talked about TNA. We also talked about some WWE news, and we talked about some other headlines. And then eventually the decision was made, okay, well, we kind of go a little bit all over the place on our Tuesday show. Why can't we just do a show dedicated to talking about TNA? So we ended up kind of just cutting the fat down or trimming the fat a little bit and just had our Thursday night show be focused on one thing only, and that's the talk of TNA. And as time progressed, more and more people gravitated towards us because it was basically kind of like, hey, we've got something that we can call our own here on Thursday nights, back when we were originally on Thursday nights. And people slowly but surely, they came around. It's still, out of all the shows we do on a weekly basis, it is still the red-haired stepchild of our shows. It didn't get as much love as it used to, especially on the downloads, but I don't know, no, there's a lot of people out there that want to rag on TNA and all that, but we've been doing Impact Showdown slash our Thursday night edition covering TNA coverage for almost almost 4 years, I think, and 3 years for sure. We got under our belts, but I think it's definitely almost hitting the 4 year mark. And gradually, we've just been seeing the fan base increase more and more for the TNA product. More and more people are coming on board for the product, and I think it's kind of interesting. I think it's an interesting tale in itself, and I'll share some more little cool stories with you as I kind of go in the back of my mind and recollect on having 125 episodes in the books. Next up, probably after I go through one or two more matches, I'll tell you how we ended up making our show be exclusive to YouTube, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio, and the circumstances for that, as it's an interesting tale in itself. But for now, let's talk about some more wrestling action. So we saw the knockouts in action as the beautiful and the lovely Madison Rayne and Taryn Terrell, they were seen in a backstage segment where Madison Rayne had said to Taryn, hey, look, about what had happened a couple of weeks ago as far as not having your back when you got destroyed by Havoc. Hey, my bad, but I'm quite sure if you would have been in my position, Madison, darling, honey Chad, you would have done the same thing. Taryn didn't answer the question and said, instead she just said, look, let's just focus on the tag match that we have to do tonight. We can be concerned with this another time. She walked out of the dressing room. Madison Rayne said, yeah, sooner rather than later, was what she said to herself, and snickering and all that. These two lovely women had teamed up to take on the beautiful peoples, Angelina Love and Velvet Sky. Great little knockouts tag match we had, although it was very one-sided because for a majority of this match, Taryn Terrell was going at it alone. Madison Rayne was conveniently just paying more attention to her hair and making sure that her nails were okay, making sure she was not available for a tag. Did not help out Taryn in any type of way. If anything, closing moments of the match, I recall her doing something. I believe she might have caused a distraction in favor of the beautiful people as she distracted Taryn, and then she actually got physical with Taryn, knocked her down on the canvas and all that good stuff, rolled out, and actually had helped the beautiful people pick up the victory over her. Yeah, you see the beautiful people, they give the nod to Madison, a couple of different directions that this could possibly go. That has me very curious. So it's kind of like, okay, so wait, obviously it's kind of coming off as if Madison Rayne is going back to being a heel again. Okay, that's awesome. But if Madison Rayne is going to go back to being a heel again, then what does that mean as far as her and the beautiful people go? Is it possible that we might see the three of those girls reform? I mean, not that Madison Rayne is needed, but I must admit, when I think about the variations of the beautiful people that we got over years, I definitely have to admit I enjoyed Velvet Sky Angelina Love as a duo more so than Angelina Love, Velvet Sky, Madison Rain, but I enjoyed the trio of Madison Rain, Angelina Love, Velvet Sky more than when it was Angelina Love, Velvet Sky, and Lacey Von Erich. I really did not like that version of the Beautiful People. Lacey was just funking that up big time. I think we all can be in agreement on that one, or at least a vast majority of us. So, I'm kind of curious now what's going to happen with regards to that, because if they aren't trying to have Madison get back with the Beautiful People, put it to you this way, folks, in a nutshell, they definitely need to tie up those loose ends, because right now it's kind of like, which way is she gonna go? Is she just being a bad girl just cuz, and she's gonna go all in it for herself because she has her own ulterior motives, or what have you? Love to know what you guys think with regards to that. So feel free to interact with us all throughout social media, YouTube, of course, our audience there. If you're watching this right now, you can definitely post those comments down below. Next up, very solid matchup between the Hardys, as they had took on Tyrus, aka Brodus Clay, and Ethan Carter the third. This was our next semifinals to figure out who all was going to be meeting in the finals to become the new number one contenders to take on the tag team champions, the American Wolves, Davey Richards, Eddie Edwards. Classic encounter right here, man. You know, I got to give mad props to Tyrus. He has just slimmed down. There's no telling where he is now. I haven't really seen that many new updated photos of him to date, but just going off what I've seen of him on television so far compared to his run in the WWE, he's slimmed down dramatically, and he's looking good. He is moving quicker than ever. He is really adapting to the TNA wrestling style. I must admit that he's doing a very good job. If I were to find a complaint, or an area rather, I won't say complaint, that's a little too strong, but if I were to find one or two areas where Brodus Clay kind of needs a little bit of help in, I definitely would have to give the nod to the commentators. Now, I don't know if maybe this is designed by the upper heads in TNA, or maybe it's a collaboration between certain people in TNA and Tyrus. But in either case, I just think it's a little bit peculiar that, as far as his background goes, working for that other company, that it's not being recognized. And to the person that is new to Tyrus and they're checking him out for the very first time, all you know right now is this man used to be a bodyguard. He did some great bodyguard work for some very well-known celebrities, which includes Snoop Dogg, aka Snoop Lion. So I mean, that's pretty much all you know. And granted, I can understand the approach from the standpoint of, well, look, he had the silly little dancing gimmick that was going on. And okay, that's fine, but what about the last gimmick that he had going on? I mean, he was doing some phenomenal stuff as a bad guy, especially with Adrian Neville for the NXT Championship, when he was feuding with Sweet Tea. If I'm not mistaken, he was feuding with Xavier Woods, R Truth. I mean, he had some very good, solid programs that was going on right there, and you couldn't capitalize off of that run to complement what's going on with him now. I just think it's a little bit weird, and it's a little bit unfortunate, because we've seen this be an issue for the TNA product time and time again for television. They bring certain people in, and they don't acknowledge their past affiliation with another company. Yet, when it most benefits TNA, when they're trying to get themselves over, when they do mention the other company, it's not because they signed a new talent. It's usually because they're just trying to do some other type of self-hype or whatever. I just think it's kind of weird, because from time to time, we've seen them mention the other company when they're trying to refer to something. But then other times when they bring in a new wrestler fresh off of coming from the WWE, I don't know. Ring of Honor, I don't know. It's very weird how they operate over there. But hey, Tyrus is adapting very well. Hardy's had defeated Tyrus and EC3. EC3 was livid at this defeat. He was definitely giving a tongue lashing to Tyrus. Tyrus took it all in stride. He didn't get physical with EC3. I guess he knows that, hey, this guy is paying my checks. I deserve it, whatever. Hardy's in rare form, though. We also got to give it up to the Hardys. Speaking of the Hardys, there is a interesting article. Yeah, I want to say it's by Sports Wrestling. A great little interview that they did with Matt Hardy and all that, and it just does a nice little recap of mentioning how much Matt Hardy has cleaned up his act over the years, and how he is just one of the hardest working men in professional wrestling right now. I mean, if you type in Matt Hardy and you just put in champion, he is champion for so many promotions right now. I mean, it is freaking insane. He's got to be holding on to at least anywhere from 6 to 8 championships right now, and he's like their heavyweight champion. I mean, he is just really hardworking, and he's just really in a good place right now where he loves what he's doing. He loves being able to pick and choose where he wants to work, what dates he wants to do. He just loves having that type of access. And I thought it was interesting how when he did bring up the WWE, he didn't put them down. At the same time, he also said that as far as their schedule goes, it's just something that he couldn't handle because it just he physically it just would be overkill for him. And I can definitely back that up as far as him being consistent goes, because we had a really cool conversation that we had with him earlier this year. And if you guys did not check it out, it's actually available in our guest exclusive section on our YouTube channel. It's also available on the downloads. And I asked him straight up, I said, if the opportunity had presented itself for you to go back to the WWE, and the schedule was right for you and everything, would you entertain it? And he said, yeah, without a doubt, I'd entertain it, but at the same time, I definitely would want to be in control of when and where I work. He really loves having that freedom of not being tied down to just one promotion. So, very curious to see how long this run that he's doing in TNA is going to last. If it's just a situation where they agreed upon X amount of dates for X amount of money, or what. Very curious to see how they go about that. We got two more matches that we're going to talk about. One of them includes the Wolves taking on, I think it was James Storm and the Great Sonata. I was a little bit distracted right here. So if I'm incorrect and you watched Impact Wrestling tonight, let me know the correct matchup before we go off the air so that we can make sure we have the most accurate information for those that's going to be checking this out later that did not watch Impact Wrestling. But to just go back to that Hardy's match one more time. So for the semifinals, it is going to be the Hardys taking on Low Key and Samoa Joe. Winner becomes the number one contenders to take on the TNA Tag Champions. Very interesting situation that's coming about right here. And there's a very good reason why I'm saying that. But first, I want to share with you guys another story. We're talking about it earlier. We teased it earlier. So we told you about how Impact Showdown pretty much had came about. And originally, Impact Showdown was just a radio version covering TNA Wrestling Fallout. And it was exclusively on Blog Talk Radio. That's where we aired live. And those of you that listen to a lot of shows on Blog Talk Radio, the audio quality on there, it just really is not that on point. I tried to be very loyal to that platform for many, many years. But, a colleague of mine had really opened up my eyes with regards to that respected platform. He told me, in a nice way. And he just reiterated time and time and time again that, if you really want to take your craft seriously as a broadcaster, and you got to pay attention to the audio, because if you have piss poor audio, that could easily turn a lot of people away. And at first, I just kind of dismissed it, and I just kind of said to myself, oh, I'm okay. But, the more and more I started to think about it, I say, he actually brings up a very valid point. I do need to look into the audio quality. So, eventually I really started getting heavy into the audio remixing of the episodes. And then I started looking for other respected platforms to air new episodes of Impact Showdown. And as some of you all know that check out our radio edition of the RCWR show Tuesday nights and Saturday nights, we are live on Spreaker. And a lot of you guys, you all say it yourselves, the audio quality on Spreaker and iHeart compared to what we did on the Blog Talk platform, it puts the Blog Talk platform to shame because the audio quality is so superior. So eventually the decision was made to make Impact Showdown at first be exclusive to YouTube, because we started doing live webcast episodes of Impact Showdown for you guys. And eventually we kind of say, well, let's go back to our folks that like to check out the radio versions of it. So we made it exclusive to those respective platforms. And the only thing that those Blog Talk servers are good for now, unfortunately, is uploading the overall finished product that we have completed here and on the other platforms. Because to try to go live on that platform, my God, the audio it's piss poor, man. To the point, I mentioned this Tuesday night, but indulge me for a little bit because I'm mentioning this wrestler who did work in TNA wrestling, so it all ties together. I actually had a great conversation with Chavo Guerrero, and we briefly had talked about his time in the TNA wrestling promotion. And we did this on the Blog Talk servers. I just wanted to test it out, see how it was, if any significant improvements might have been made. And the audio was so piss poor. The audio wasn't savable. And I was bummed out because I really wanted you guys to listen to it. But at the same time, it was kind of good that you guys didn't get to hear it, because unfortunately, with this new promotion that he's working for now, which is Lucha Underground, which did make their series premiere tonight, we actually won't be reviewing it until this weekend because I don't have DirecTV or Comcast. I am with Verizon Fio. So for me, the only way I can access that right now is on the Univision network, and they won't air it until Saturday afternoon. So we'll talk about it then for those of you that might be a little bit curious what I think about that promotion. But I'm kind of glad you guys didn't get to check out the Chavo interview because it was very controlled, the conversation, because me and Chavo, we were basically brought in a three-way call conference by a network executive for El Rey. And, unfortunately, the few questions that I was able to put out there, TNA related, you guys would have loved it too. It was, when you hear the way I set the tone, it was kind of like, Lee's got another classic one here. This one's actually going to be pretty freaking awesome. But then it just turned into nothing but Lucha Underground talk. And unfortunately, if you're not really that familiar with a new promotion, there's only but so much hype you want to hear about that before it becomes overkill. You're probably going to be like, okay, well, this is Chavo. Can we talk more about TNA? Can we talk more about WWE? Can we maybe talk more about Eddie Guerrero? Can we talk more about those things? Because I'm kind of interested in this Lucha Underground thing, but all right, stop promoting it already, but it is what it is. We'll actually try to see if we can get him back on the show at a later date, maybe like when it's not organized by the network. Very eerie to like conduct a conversation with somebody and like somebody jumps in every couple of minutes, and it's kind of like, God, we're nervous as it is. Can we just do the damn conversation? Very crazy. We got two more matches to talk about. Let's go ahead. Let's go for it. Wolves. I believe they took on Storm and Great Sonata. I might be wrong, but at the same time, I think I'm on to something here because I remember Manic was there, and I think he was just watching everything that was going on with the match. Okay, so very weird. Of course, you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, Davey Richards, I believe it was. He was approached by James Storm and crew, and so here we are a week, 2 weeks later, and basically Storm was kind of like, hey, look, our stable, it's expanding, blah blah blah. You see Davey Richards come out, and it kind of comes off as though maybe he is ready to cross over to the dark side or whatever, who knows. You see his tag partner come out, and basically, long story short, it set up a tag match. I had a hard time getting into this segment until the tag match was underway because to see the Wolves come out, let's be for real. And I think those of you that have been watching the Wolves long enough, you guys can definitely be in agreement with me. The Wolves sometimes seem to struggle a little bit on the microphone. The microphone really is not their best friend. I mean, they just I'm gonna leave it at that because if I say any more, it might go further down south, and I don't want to come off as if I'm burying the guys. But I think a majority of us can be in agreement that their mic work isn't really that up to par. All right, but their in ring work is definitely very solid. We had saw Manic at one point talk to Davey Richards. I don't know what the hell he was whispering in his ear, but it definitely had caused a big enough of a distraction as James Storm and his crew had managed to pick up the victory. Looks like it looks like they're putting the seeds in there to break up the Wolves. And somebody had a very interesting question on Twitter. I want to make sure we show this person some love because they had asked me, I believe, what did I think of what's going on with the Wolves. Let me see if I can pull them up because I don't see them in the notifications now yet. I did see it on my phone. Bear with me a second here, guys, because I like acknowledging you guys that do send questions here. Let me see here. Here he is. It was Cody at the RCWR show. That James Storm segment was sweet, and I see a breakup coming, which sucks. But what's your opinion on that and where it's going? James Storm seems to be channeling that Gary Hart right now. He is building himself a very good stable, as he has Manic, Great Sonata. He's looking to add another man to the camp. I'm not really sure what to make of the Wolves being broke up. I mean, I have an idea because I found out about some of the spoilers. I know what's going to be happening in the next coming weeks. No worry, we're not going to spoil anything for you guys. We're going to do our best to keep it spoiler free here. But I'm not really sure what to make of the direction that the Wolves seem to be going in. I need to watch a little bit more to really be able to comment on it, but it does kind of seem as though the Wolves are being put in that situation where they're going to split up, and I'm not really sure if that would be a good thing or if it could possibly be a bad thing. I got to watch a few more episodes, Cody, to really find out what's going on with that. And while I'm at it here, because I don't want to overlook this comment since I am looking at the Twitter feed right now, Rick says, at least the main event tonight on Impact was okay. Rest, in my opinion, was filler. 4 out of 10 it was, as far as Rick is concerned. I'll definitely give you guys my overall thoughts about the TNA product in just a little bit. We got one more match to talk about. Let's go on ahead. Let's talk about it. As Rick was alluding to earlier, it was Bobby Lashley taking on Bobby Roode, TNA World Heavyweight Championship on the line. Second time these guys are crossing paths. The Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle is your special guest referee. I'll tell you, man, a really great way to close out Impact Wrestling. This match had came on at the 10:30 p.m. mark. So minus the commercials, you probably had about, if you were lucky, you probably had about maybe 20 minutes of wrestling that was going on between these two guys. And it was a classic. I honestly, I thought they did better than their first encounter. I know that's probably hard for you guys to believe, but it just, to me, it seemed like these guys really went more at it this go around than the first time. Seems like they really just laid it all out there. And I love the Rude bomb that Rude had did to Lashley midway the stage ramp. Nice little spot right there. And then he gives him like a serious wedgie as he's just pulling the hell up out of his tights, drags him into the ring and all that. And came close to getting a 3 count. Lashley kicked out though. And somehow in the mix of it all, Kurt Angle, he got taken out. He's out cold for a little bit. Then we see the younger Hebner come in, try to do a count. So short. Lashley would eventually, as the referee was distracted, do a low blow to Bobby Roode, and then he would go for the TNA strap to try to hit Roode over the head with it. Baby Hebner saw this, said, no, 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 you need to put that championship down. You're not going to win the belt this way. Put it back. Lashley complied, and then he hit Hebner with a stiff clothesline, knocked him in the Sunday. He was knocked out. Meanwhile, Kurt Angle was able to come through, and he counted a 1 and a 2 count. From there, it pretty much was all about Roode trying to get Lashley in another Roode bomb. Lashley was doing a good job countering the hell out of it. The end result was basically Roode getting a fast roll up on Lashley. All right. 1, 2, 3. And Bobby Lashley losing the TNA World Heavyweight Championship to the It Factor, Bobby Roode, who is your TNA World Heavyweight Champion for a second time. If you guys had watched Impact Wrestling, you definitely would have noticed. I think it was either a white guy or a Hispanic guy. He looked like he was about to have tears stream down his face as he was chanting Bobby Roode, and you're just kind of like, wow, he's really into the moment. Damn it! But no. Let me leave. He's just passionate. I couldn't help but feel good for Bobby Roode as well. I mean, it's been a long time since he's been a TNA champion. He should have been a multi-time TNA champion by now. And it's quite unfortunate that it's taken him this long just to get a second title reign, quite honestly. And I'm ecstatic for him. You know, at the same time, I can't help but kind of go back to Bobby Lashley and say, okay, so what's next for him? Because he's doing a really good job with Bellator, doing the MMA thing. And for me, I just kind of thought that it made a little bit more sense to have the championship belt be around his waist, because not only is he giving exposure to TNA, but he's kind of giving exposure to Bellator. You know, it just kind of really didn't make that much sense to me. Not to mention, you know, he's got that good market appeal to him. He's definitely more of a household name, I feel, than a Bobby Roode. Some of you may want to challenge that, but you know, that's just how I feel. I'm sticking to that, you know. But you know, speaking of Bobby Lashley and all that, there's something I want to bring to you guys' attention. I think it's a great segue right now, and I'll mention this one TNA news item, and then we'll get to you guys' comments here. You know, there was an interesting article that TNA Wrestling had put up on their website. I believe it was sometime last week, or maybe it was earlier this week. I'm leaning more towards it was sometime last week, with regards to the match between Bobby Roode and Bobby Lashley. Now, let's see if you guys can catch on to this. And I'm actually pulling up the article right now. Bear with me. I'm making sure it's still here because I saw it on my mobile device, but whether or not it'll pop up here on the desktop is a different story. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Here we go. All right. This is a press release that TNA Wrestling had put out over the weekend. All right. TNA Wrestling would like to congratulate Lashley on his dominant performance inside the Bellator MMA cage tonight. Remember, the Bellator 130, it was this past Friday night, which would have been Friday, October 24th. All right. Lashley picked up a strong victory over Carl Etherton at Bellator 130, quickly moving up the ranks in Bellator's competitive heavyweight division. Lashley finished the fight in the first round, picking up a brutal TKO win and improving his MMA record to an impressive 12-2. Now Lashley turns his focus to Wednesday night and Bobby Roode. The TNA World Heavyweight Champion will face Roode in the main event with special guest referee Kurt Angle, and TNA's most respected prize is on the line. A major question we have is, how quickly can Lashley's body recover from his rigorous training and fight at Bellator 130? Fighting at the highest level of two worlds is tough. Fighting in Bellator on Friday and defending your TNA world title on Wednesday? That's completely unheard of. One thing is for sure, Lashley is the destroyer and one of the toughest men in the world. He has run through all comers in both TNA and Bellator with relative ease. If anyone is up to the task, it's him. What's the problem with this press release, boys and girls? If you haven't been able to figure it out at this point, I'm going to tell you what the problem is. What we just watched tonight, Wednesday night, October 29th, between Lashley, Roode for the TNA Championship, this was recorded like almost a month and a half ago. Lashley fought live at Bellator 130 last Friday. So TNA, forgive me here, I always try to give you guys props when you're doing things right. When you're doing things wrong, I definitely let you guys have it. And I'm sorry, but as that person that's kicking back as a casual wrestling fan first, and I'm checking out you guys' product every single week, this press release that you guys had put out is very misleading, okay? Very misleading. And it's deceitful. And I think it's wrong. Whoever came up with this idea, they need to be reprimanded. Either it's they lose their privileges of writing content on you all's website, or they get fired. The last thing you want to do is create a product that comes off being deceitful and misleading, all in the name of trying to get ratings and all that. It's so funny too, because I was talking to a friend of mine about this earlier today, and I asked her, I said, what do you think about this? Because she follows wrestling herself. And when I told her the press release and everything, I said, now, what does that sound like to you? And she didn't even have to think that long. She said, it sounds like TNA is pulling a swerve on its viewers. And I told her, I said, if it was 1980 or whatever, I can maybe kind of understand them getting away with this. All right, because 1980, we didn't have internet yet. There was, we didn't have the dirt sheets, the websites, the podcasts. We didn't have all that yet. Okay, so it would have worked. But here in this day and age, it's very rare you come across that wrestling fan that will go, well, I don't pay attention to any spoilers. I just watch my product, and whatever happens on the show, happens on the show. But it's a little hard to dodge certain things, especially when stuff like what we're watching now is like a month and a half old. So I just think that's a really thin line that TNA is crossing right there, and it's a line that they really should not be crossing. It's very, very deceitful. It's very misleading. some of you guys may disagree with me on that, but I mean, when you're trying to make it come off as though, wow, Lashley won live at this Bellator pay per view, and now he has to turn around 4 days later and defend his TNA championship. You're trying to make it seem like it's current. No, that's just not going to work. It's not. I don't care what anybody says. You can bring me whatever argument you want to bring. There's just no way of justifying that. It's just tasteless. It's cheap. It really comes off as if TNA is being pressed. And maybe they're being pressed for right reasons. Last week's Impact Wrestling, get this, it scored a disappointing 0.83 rating. It did not even make it in the top 100 shows last week. It failed in reaching its 18 to 34-year-old male key demographics. Meanwhile, you look at what WWE was doing with Raw on Monday night. They came in number 3 and number 4 in meeting that respected target audience. The competition was football. If you remove football, as it definitely had targeted that 18 to 34 demographics, take it off the table, Raw would have been number 1. Guess what TNA Wrestling had lost to last week in the ratings? What shows they lost to? You can't make this up. They lost to reruns of CSI, Robot Chicken, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. God, I can't remember. Oh, Pokemon. Yes, Pokemon. There's like 2 other shows. Cops wasn't on the list, though. It might have been. I don't know, but I don't remember seeing Cops. But you just hear the shows that they lost to. You're like, wow, so they lost to a bunch of reruns. The hell is going on here? Makes no freaking sense. Maybe that's why it's been so staggering for the promotion to find a new TV deal, which brings me to a new update here. And myself, the TNA Insider.com staff, we definitely have been doing our best to stay on top of this news for you guys. Remember, for all the very latest, head on over to TNAinsider.com. Great staff over there. Of course, I'm wrestling columnist for that site. We're always working hard to give you guys some great TNA wrestling news. As it stands right now, TNA head of talent acquisitions, Bob Ryder, he took to his Twitter account to squash the recent rumors that TNA execs were in New York today, signing off on a new television deal. Rumors detailed that TNA was set to sign a new deal today and immediately moved to film new Impact Wrestling footage. Now, our good friends over at WrestlingInc.com is now reporting that John Gubrick was in New York to finalize a television deal for Impact Wrestling, and that Dixie Carter will be making an announcement this Friday concerning the future of Impact Wrestling. But here's what Bob Ryder had to say on Twitter with regards to the news, and direct quote, "More sloppy reporting. If you label something exclusive, it should be accurate. Wrestling journalism isn't what it used to be." So we'll know what happens this Friday. I mean, that's the only thing we can do right now is play the waiting game. But for now, take what you're hearing with a grain of salt until you see the press release come about otherwise. And other than that, that's pretty much been it as far as TNA wrestling news. So let's go on ahead. Let's upload some of you guys' comments, see what y'all have to say with regards to tonight's TNA product. And if I do not get to everybody's comments, just keep on posting, whether it's on YouTube or throughout Twitter and Facebook. I'll definitely respond to you guys as soon as I get a free moment. All right, Jason, hello, Lee. What do you think will happen with Kurt Angle? Will he sign with TNA or WWE? Didn't his contract expire already? Thanks. I talked about this at great length on our radio edition of the RCWR show, so you might want to check that out when you get a chance. I talked about it in depth Tuesday night. Oh, Steve, what's up, man? What's up, Lee? Back watching your awesome channel. Glad Bobby Roode became champion again. He deserves it. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Jason feels that with regards to the press release that I read earlier, he feels that TNA needs to retract it ASAP. It's almost insulting to the fan. Do the right thing, TNA. Exactly. Whether, honestly, it would make sense for them to do a little bit of damage control, put some type of a press release, and apologize for putting that out there and trying to insult their fans' intelligence. But I don't see them doing that, unfortunately. I don't. And instead, what they do is, just post some other stuff and try to bury that, but it's always going to be out there on social media. David, what's up, Lee? I missed TNA due to the World Series game going on, but it's no problem as long as you're around. I always make it a point to catch a show. Keep up the good work, bud. David, we appreciate that. Thank you so much, and hope you're enjoying the World Series. James, I wonder what is going to happen next week between MVP Bobby Lashley and Bobby Roode. Yeah, they did a nice little teaser right there as Impact Wrestling went off the air. They said something about MVP Lashley Roode collide, and they were like saying you're not going to believe the twist or something to that effect. Weston, Lee, TNA got some awesome tag teams, but they don't have a tag team name. So my question is, what name would you give the team of Low Ki and Samoa Joe? I'll answer that on our weekend edition of the RCWR show, or possibly next week's Impact Showdown. Wow, that's a surprise. So Bobby is the TNA champ? Yep, Bobby Roode is the TNA champ. Adrian, do you guys think Bobby Lashley will ever go back to WWE? Well, he's had talks with them in the past. Nothing was able to come to fruition, but from what I remember in recent years, he did get a couple of feelers out, see what possible offers they had available, if anything. So honestly, I think the biggest discrepancy for Lashley returning to the WWE product is what's up with Michael Hayes. Remember, main reason why Hayes had left the WWE was largely in part to Michael Hayes. Look it up if you guys don't know what I'm talking about. Z-Paul. Randy Orton was right in his promo last night. That's not TNA related, so I'm not even going to finish reading that one. Lee, in your opinion, is Low Ki the most underrated wrestler in this generation? And if not, who is? There's a lot of underrated wrestlers as far as I'm concerned. I could sit here for about 15 minutes and come up with different names. Is he one of those people? Yes. Is he the most underrated? No. But he is on the list of underrated wrestlers. Mixer, I was shocked when Bobby won the title. What are you saying here? I might have to move the mic. I'm not trying to move the mic. I'm rather comfortable here. I was shocked when Bobby won. I thought, what the hell? Lashley didn't even hold the title 6 months, and he should have it at least a year because he is a legit badass. Yeah, man, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually working up an article as we speak with regards to Lashley's reign as champion. I'll hopefully have that be up before the weekend is out. But overall tonight, with regards to the TNA product, matches that really kind of stand out in my mind the most. Hardy's taking on Tyrus, EC3. Roode, Lashley, TNA Championship. I mean, other than that, maybe I could give an honorable mention to Low Ki, Samoa Joe taking on MVP and Kenny King, but it was an average episode. I mean, really, if you're big fans of Lashley and Roode, and you want to see Roode become the champion for yourself, I say go out of your way to check out the product just to watch that match and watch Hardy's take on Tyrus and EC3. But, this is just one of those episodes. You're not going to really remember every single thing that happened on this episode. If anything, you'll be like, oh, yeah, Roode took on Lashley for the belt. Yeah, I remember that episode. I remember Roode beating Lashley. But if somebody were to ask you 6 months from now, okay, well, other than that match, what were the other matches that came about that night you can remember, you're going to be pulling your hair out. It wasn't a really memorable episode. But it did pass just barely. I tell you what, if it wasn't for the Lashley taking on Roode match, it definitely, for me, would not get a pass. But that's how I'm looking at it for this week. All right, so we got this show in the books right at the stroke of midnight. We've been on for almost an hour. Want to give you guys a quick program and know we will be back with a weekend edition of the RCWR show. That's going to be coming on this Saturday night, November 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you check that out. That's going to be a very solid episode. We got episodes for you guys to check out on the downloads, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, Spreaker, all over the place. Use the keywords, the RCWR show. All the links you need is in the episode description. Definitely go out of your way to check out this past Tuesday night's radio edition of the RCWR show. I shared some really fun and insightful stories. I talked very candidly about a car accident that my girlfriend was involved in. I also talked about a bus incident. I went into a little bit more detail about the conversation I had with Chavo Guerrero. As far as the Kurt Angle possibly staying with TNA, I went in depth on that. I went all over the place on that episode. It was a really, really good episode. If you haven't checked it out, do so. Check it out when you guys get a chance. And that's going to do it for all the very latest. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at the RCWR Show or on Facebook at Infinity One Productions. Do make sure you go out of your way, give this episode a thumbs up, share it a number of ways by Facebooking it, Google Plusing it, retweeting it. As always, is one of the many ways you can spread a good word about our content. And that is going to do it until Saturday evening, November 1st. For our weekend edition of the RCWR show, live and only on Spreaker.com. Wishing all y'all to be safe and most importantly, be kind to one another. See you next go round. Everybody, take care.